Hello, everyone. I hope all is well and you have a nice week ahead. For the structure of this assignment number 2, our presentation focuses on the social problem first, which is how changing community demographics are impacting elementary schools and higher education institutions. The focus of the case study at the end will be elementary school children, but the presentation applies to both children in elementary school and adults at higher education institutions. These changing demographics for Canadian communities as a result of immigration and other geopolitical factors necessitate leadership that accounts for these learners' language, culture, and situation outside of the school. The second stage of the presentation, we will look at issues facing education leadership as they adjust to online education in a broad sense for both children and adults. The third stage of the presentation will be a look at 3 leadership theories and how they can apply to the broad issues facing education leadership. The 3 leadership theories are distributed, situational, and transformational leadership. There's some overlap between the theories, and it's a worthwhile to approach leadership as if not one singular theory is the correct choice. So finally, we will conclude with a case study that looks at an elementary school and the issues they are facing with an adjustment towards online learning. The school and the issues will give us the framework for how we can apply the leadership theories in a hypothetical environment. The social problem. We're looking at changing demographics for Canadian communities as a result of immigration and other geopolitical factors that necessitate leadership that accounts for these learners' language, culture, and situation outside of the school. When a child or learner attempts to learn outside of their preferred language, they are at risk of having negative outcomes deter them from future participation. Learning how to read and write in a second language presents challenges for these learners that their monolingual peers do not face. Their peers have established oral language skills in English that help them when adjusting to online learning. These children or learners that do not have established English language skills face the dual burden of having to learn the language of instruction and then developing these skills in an additional language. On the topic of culture, it is fair to say that any teaching is potentially exposed to being presented from a particular perspective or experience. So for lesson plans, especially online education lesson plans, they need to account for the various perspectives and experiences of students as best they can. Outside of school, these children and adult learners face many challenges that will impact them at school. Some of these challenges include poverty, home stability, and trauma. Poverty routinely excludes children from participating in both school and community activities. In school, students coming from poverty are unable to consistently gain the better learning opportunities, and their experiences suffer because of this. For children and adults in these situations, adjusting to the requirements of online learning is a greater challenge. If you're still with me, I can already tell this presentation will be much longer than I thought, so maybe now is a good time to grab a refreshment. Okay, so with the social problem established, let's take a look at the broad issues facing leadership as they adjust to online education. In a paper titled Leadership in a New Era of Higher Distance Education, Martha Cleveland Innes and Alberta Sangra have identified a list from other sources of factors that educational institutions must overcome to transform their services and lead to innovation. These include limited public funding, the increasing costs of higher education, the growing demand of educational services for an increasingly diverse type of student, the increasing role of the information and communication technologies, the emerging view of teaching and learning as an investment for the future. On top of those issues, there are broader challenges, which are identified as economic issues, changing demographics, emerging technology, and new models of teaching and learning. Government deficits, competition for public funding, limited corporate funds, and diminishing philanthropic activity combine to paint a picture of flat, if not diminishing, budgets for education. When operating in an environment with diminishing budgets, schools have two choices. They can look for innovative ways to self-fund, or they can create corporate models that bring in investment dollars. Changing student characteristics, increasing enrollment from seniors and lifelong learners means that there is a greater need for attention to individual needs. This means creating course and program schedules that are flexible, convenient, and accessible. Geographic mobility, immigration, and education technology that allows for fully remote learning means that intercultural experiences are part of modern student life. Institutions face the requirement to create a culture and climate that offers respect and support in all aspects of learning for every student, regardless of their background. Within society, all human activity and social organizational structures are being transformed by emerging technologies. Education is also a part of this transformation. These changes have transformed the interaction opportunities among students and between students and teachers. This has affected both program management and the teaching learning experience. The proliferation of new information and technologies will make the job of teaching more dynamic and constructive than before. Applying learner centric learning models will allow students to participate more fully in the arrangement of their own learning experiences. For students, there will need to be an adjustment to required behaviors, attitudes, and values to adapt to the role of self directed, continuous, active learners. Okay, we've arrived at the second intermission and we're about halfway through the presentation. Wonderful time for refreshment number 2. To recap, we have the social problem of changing community demographics and the 4 major issues facing education leaders, as you can see on the screen. To paraphrase the information being cut for time purposes from the other articles in our course, education is rapidly evolving as new technologies emerge. Education historically has been slow to react to change and disrupt the status quo. Now, to be fair, the pace of change is much faster with today's technologies than ever before in the past. These new issues and rapid change mean that leadership needs to be proactive, which leads us to the 3 leadership theories and how they can be applied to these issues. We are going to look at distributed leadership, situational leadership, and transformational leadership. We will take a brief look at defining each of them as well as applying them towards the issues facing education leadership. I have taken this definition from Dr. Bainbridge's live binder on leadership theories. This has been an awesome resource in my other leadership courses. Distributed leadership is more an all-encompassing view of an organization rather than the style or attributes of the leader. It lends itself well to educational institutions and the autonomy of faculty. Leadership is a shared responsibility within the group, and many educational facilities and schools see it as a method to empower teachers. Cleveland, Eanes, and Sanger discuss distributed leadership as a strategy for developing virtual communities. They identified a list of skills in their article that leadership will need to be successful in online education. I've pulled a few of these from the list, and they are: make sure to give support to bottom up initiatives, attract enthusiastic employees who believe in online education, develop strategies that support online education and make sure that employees are loyal to the strategy. Focus on quality. Utilize the pressure to change as a means to be flexible, to stay in business, and to adapt to the changing market. And define precisely the institutional model you will adopt. For distributed leadership, the idea is to identify the challenges and address the challenges by creating change that approaches innovation. The authors surmise that the new normal for education will involve collaborative partnerships, networked environments, new models of teaching and learning, and continuous strategic planning. To make these changes, there is a need for courageous and collaborative leaders willing to address important and difficult issues. The top-down chain of command style approach from previous decades is not suitable for the future of education as technologies and online education continue to emerge. Distributed leadership allows for an institution to leverage everyone and all of their expertise. Okay, situational leadership. So ideally, this would work in tandem with distributed leadership. Distributed leadership is about leveraging the skills and expertise of every stakeholder and empowering them to make a difference. Situational leadership is about constantly reevaluating and looking for ways to improve and adjust as technology and markets change. Again, I've used the definition from Dr. Bainbridge's live binder on leadership theories. When a decision is needed, an effective leader does not just fall into a single preferred style. In practice, as they say, things are not that simple. Factors that affect situational decisions include motivation and capability of followers. This, in turn, is affected by factors within the particular situation. The relationship between followers and the leader may be another factor that affects leader behavior as much as it does follower behavior. Situational leadership, with its ability to diagnose the organization at that moment and determine its stakeholders' readiness for moving in a new direction, is a valuable tool for constantly adjusting. The leader diagnoses the unique situation in the immediate environment and then transforms it as far along the change continuum as necessary through a collaborative style. In this way, a climate less resistant to and more receptive toward distance education is created, often in an incremental fashion as the situation is gradually transformed. While an organization is trying to balance economic issues, changing demographics, emerging technology, and new models of teaching and learning, being able to reevaluate how change is progressing and make adjustments to plans based on follower participation and readiness is a valuable component of situational leadership. Okay, so we have distributed leadership that empowers stakeholders and creates collaboration. We have situational leadership that constantly reevaluates the organization's plans and makes adjustments as stakeholder readiness for change evolves. Then finally, we have transformational leadership, which is about accelerating the change curve. So significant change is needed and needed fast. And this is where transformational leadership comes in. One last definition from Dr. Bainbridge's live binder. Transformational leadership was first proposed by James McGregor Burns. He based the concept on the premise that leaders and followers can work together to raise each other to greater levels of achievement, motivation, and moral standing. Bernard Bass built on Burns' ideas, but viewed transformational leadership as a one-way relationship, with the leader lifting the followers to new heights of motivation and achievement. Bass also included the possibilities for behavioral change occurring when a transformational leader is in place. Transformational leadership is appropriate when major fundamental change is required. It is based on a vision that will transform followers and then lead to transformations in an organization, a field, or society at large, resulting in paradigm shifts, new perceptions, and new directions. Transformational leaders in education must be capable of helping its stakeholders recognize that there are obvious benefits in doing business in new ways and that they can no longer afford the luxury of adopting new ways of teaching and learning in a slow, incremental fashion to which academics are so accustomed and comfortable in doing. Leaders must create conditions conducive to change, which involves creating energy, initiative, and innovation in their particular organization and bring others along, both above and below them, in the organizational hierarchy. For many organizations, there is a requirement for attitude change by the stakeholders towards online education. In these circumstances, where there is no buy in from the stakeholders, transformational leadership can play a significant role in changing the stakeholders' attitudes. Transformational leadership in distance education requires several factors relating to organizational and administrative elements. These include statements of mission, purpose, and objectives, unified program, curriculum, teaching, and learning strategies, well-developed interdepartmental infrastructure, communication, and interaction, the presence of administrative proponents, policies regarding students, tutors, and proctors, engaging additional staff and outside experts as needed, material development, and finally, disbursement, reimbursement, and evaluation. Okay, final intermission and home stretch ahead. Next, we'll look at applying the three leadership theories to an elementary school. A bit of background about the school first. The local community around the school has had a significant change to student demographic in the past 8 years. Currently, the staff at the school is very resistant to using technology and prefer the old school way of instruction. Immigrant students are struggling with adjusting to the language of instruction, which is English and a second language for most of them. And they also have limited technology resources at home. If we break up this case study into three concerns, the three concerns for leadership would be adjusting current staff mindset towards technology and online based learning, coming up with innovative ways to teach the curriculum to both students who are fluent in English and those that English is a second language, and finally, providing technology and online based learning that requires limited resources outside of the school. Adjusting current staff mindset is a perfect fit for transformational leadership. The leader in this scenario has a short timeline for getting staff buy-in, and following a consistent roadmap is the best path forward to achieve that buy-in. We will discuss empowering the teachers in a little bit, and certainly that's an important part of all of this as well. The roadmap would be to produce a mission statement, unify teaching and learning strategies, develop interdepartmental communication, establish policies regarding all stakeholders, engage additional staff and outside experts, and constantly reevaluate. An additional important component of this strategy is to deploy situational leadership by constantly evaluating progress and making adjustments as stakeholder readiness changes. This will not be a smooth, straightforward process, and performing evaluations and then readjusting as the situation changes is an important endeavor. An important function and benefit of teaching with technology and online education is that you have additional tools at your disposal. Tools and options that can be used in innovative ways for a classroom that is trying to teach the same material to both English fluent children and children with whom English is a second language. Some of these tools include learning management systems like Moodle, tools that create gamification within education, virtual worlds such as K-12 virtual worlds, and video sites such as TeacherTube. For this case study, it is important that there is buy-in towards technology for the entire school, and this was addressed with a transformational leadership step. If the buy-in occurs, then the next step will be to empower teachers to use those tools in ways that impact their classrooms. This is where distributed leadership comes in. Distributed leadership would increase departmental autonomy to make their own decisions. It would share the responsibility of leadership across many levels. And most importantly, it would empower the teachers who interact with the children every day and understand them, their progress, and their family's ability to support them better than anyone else in the building. The final concern with this case study is that not all children in the school have the same resources at home to manage technology and online-based learning. This is a difficult hurdle to overcome, and this is where I would propose situational leadership. So each teacher and staff member will be at a different point in their readiness to deploy technologies or even accept them as a tool. These stages will impact each teacher's ability to manage the classroom and the time available to them during the day. Situational leadership would allow the leader to evaluate and determine staff readiness on an individual basis. Each classroom will be unique and evolving. This allows the leader to be in touch with what makes the classroom unique and how it's evolving over time. And this style will allow for adjustments and a change of plans as they are needed, as opposed to waiting for a giant problem to occur, which originated from small problems that went unnoticed. Thank you, everyone, for making it this far. In summary, modern leaders have general issues that they need to overcome as new technologies and ways of operating emerge. Separate from that, there are additional socioeconomic issues that are present everywhere we look. While there is no definitive leadership theory that applies to all, there is at least a need for a plan and a specific approach. I presented transformational leadership, situational leadership, and distributed leadership as approaches for the specific case study. I look forward to everyone's presentation and hope you have a wonderful few weeks left in the course. Take care.